Her family told me, "We just need to borrow all your savings. You'll get it back soon." So I locked my account, took every penny out, and walked away without saying a word. I'm 34, and for a long time I thought love had to feel loud to be real. Then I met Emily. The kind of person who texts to check if you ate lunch. The kind who shows up unasked with broth and crackers when you're sick. After a few weeks, the best part, at first, was her family. They lived in a small town in Ohio. Church on Sundays. They were the kind of people who said grace and meant it. Our first Thanksgiving together, her dad took my hand and said, "Son, we're glad you're here." Her mom pulled me in for a hug like I'd been in the family for years. I remember thinking, these are my people. The room smelled like cinnamon and potatoes, and everyone laughed at the same old story about Emily's first driving lesson. It was simple and warm. There were small signs I didn't read the right way. Emily's younger brother, Tyler, always seemed short on cash. He wore a friendly smile and joked about it, but he'd nudge me and say, "Hey man, spot me 50 till next week?" Emily would roll her eyes and laugh. "He's just bad with money," she'd say. One afternoon, her mom said, almost in passing, "Emily's always been our rock. We've had a rough few years." It sounded like a compliment. I took it that way. Emily and I had a plan. A small house with a yard. A dog. Maybe kids one day. We split rent and cooked at home most nights. I worked late, picked up side gigs, and saved hard. Over the years, I dreamed of paying for a place without a mortgage. No debt. No fear of losing it all. I never thought anyone else would try to touch that. Then came the first favor. Emily's mom had a hospital bill after a scare. Nothing life-threatening, but expensive. Emily sat on the couch, knees folded, voice soft. "It's just until next month," she said. "They'll pay it back." I looked at her and saw the woman who had brought me soup, who left sticky notes on my fridge that said, "Drink water." I wrote the check. I told myself it was family. We were building a life. This was what people did. Life went on. We watched shows. We tried new recipes. We took a cheap weekend trip and brought back a mug that said "Good things ahead." When the bill wasn't paid back the next month, Emily said they needed a little more time. "They're trying," she told me. "It's been a tough stretch." I nodded. I wanted to be the man who didn't flinch in hard moments. Still, once I start noticing a thing, I can't unsee it. Tyler forgot a few small Venmo requests. Her parents asked for help with a car repair and promised to return it in 2 paychecks. I told myself not to be petty. I told myself love means trust. One night, after dinner, Emily was washing dishes, and I was drying. She leaned her shoulder into mine. "You're good to them," she said. "They see that." It sounded like praise, and I let it warm me. I didn't ask for dates or numbers. I didn't check my balances right then. I wanted to believe kindness was simple. Looking back, that was the last quiet week. The air still felt calm, but a line had been crossed, and I didn't see it. I'd started to put my money where my heart was. And once you do that, people learn how your heart works. The next ask would not be small. A few months later, things seemed steady again. Emily and I had fallen into our usual rhythm. Groceries on Sundays, walks in the park, quiet evenings with takeout and TV. Life felt manageable. Then one evening, Emily came home with that familiar, cautious look, the one she wore when she needed to ask something big. "Tyler's in a bind again," she started. "It's college tuition this time. He's short a few thousand." I set my fork down. "Didn't he say he had it covered?" "He did," she admitted. "But the loan fell through, and if he doesn't pay now, he'll have to drop a class. He's really trying, babe." I stared at my plate, weighing silence against frustration. She reached over, resting her hand on mine. "We'll get it back. You know he's not great with planning, but he's family. We help each other." I sighed, nodded, and sent the money the next day. I didn't want to start a fight over something that sounded temporary. Weeks passed, but I never saw a repayment. Instead, small favors turned into assumptions. If something came up, they called. If someone was short, they looked to me. Emily always smoothed it over with a smile, saying, "It's just this once." Then, one Tuesday evening, her father called. His tone was heavier than usual. "Son, can you come by? We need to talk. All of us." I drove over after dinner. Their dining table, usually scattered with candles and photo frames, was cleared, except for a stack of papers. Emily sat beside me, her hands folded tightly. Her parents were across from us, faces serious. Her dad started slowly. "You know how much we care about you. You've been a blessing to our family." Her mom nodded. "We're proud of how hard you work. You remind us of ourselves when we were your age." I smiled politely, unsure where this was going. Then came the turn. Her dad cleared his throat. "We've hit a rough patch. Business has slowed down, the mortgage is due, and some medical bills have piled up. We just need a loan, something to get us back on our feet." I shifted in my chair. "How much are we talking about?" He hesitated, then exchanged a quick look with his wife. All of it, he said finally. All of what? Your savings, he replied gently. We know you've done well. We'd pay it back in a few months, tops. You're practically family now. For a moment, I just sat there, staring. My savings weren't pocket money. It was years of early mornings and skipped vacations. I can't do that, I said quietly. That's everything I have. Emily reached for my arm. They're my parents. They'd never take advantage. They just need help. You said you wanted to build a future with me. This is part of it. Her words didn't sound comforting anymore. They felt practiced, like she'd said them in her head before speaking aloud. I excused myself soon after, telling them I needed time to think. On the drive home, my chest felt tight. My savings had always been my safety net, the one thing I controlled. The idea of handing it over, even to people I cared about, didn't feel right. Back at my apartment, I opened my banking app and stared at the numbers. The balance didn't bring peace anymore. It brought pressure. I thought back to every favor, every late payment, every excuse. They weren't accidents. They were rehearsals. By midnight, I'd made a decision. If they were testing my boundaries, I'd test their intentions. The next morning, I told Emily I'd do it, that I'd help. Relief washed over her face. She hugged me and said, "You're doing the right thing. They'll make it right." That afternoon, I went to the bank. But before anything else, I added alerts, locked every transfer, and set up extra verification. If someone tried to move that money, I'd know immediately. It was a quiet act, but it changed everything. The next day felt strange. Emily seemed lighter, humming as she packed her bag before heading out. "I'm just grabbing coffee," she said, leaning down to kiss my cheek. I smiled back, but inside, something tugged at me, a quiet unease that wouldn't fade. After she left, I opened my laptop to check emails, half distracted, trying to shake off the thought that something was coming. And then it happened. A soft ding broke the silence. I looked at my phone. Bank alert. Transfer attempt failed. At first, I thought it had to be a glitch, maybe a system error. But as I read it again, I froze. Someone had just tried to move every cent out of my savings. My pulse thudded in my ears as I opened the details. The request hadn't come from her dad's account. It came from the device registered under my login, Emily's. For a long minute, I just sat there, staring at the screen. My chest felt hollow. The person I trusted most had known everything, my login, my passwords, even the security question I'd picked years ago. She hadn't stumbled into this. She'd planned it. I waited. 30 minutes later, she walked back in, holding a paper cup and smiling like everything was fine. "Hey," she said softly. "You okay? You look tense." "I'm just tired," I replied. I didn't mention the alert. Not yet. That night, while she was showering, I made my move. I logged into my account, withdrew every cent, closed it, and opened a new one at a different bank. I printed the confirmation, folded it, and slid it into my wallet. Then I packed. Quietly. Just a bag, my documents, and the life I still had left. Before leaving, I stood by the counter for a moment, pen in hand. I wanted to shout, demand answers, ask why. But some things don't need noise. They need clarity. So I wrote a single note and left it beside her keys. "You didn't want me. You wanted my savings. Now you've lost both." Then I walked out. No goodbyes. No slammed doors. Just air. Cool, heavy, honest air. The first few nights were rough. My phone lit up with her name again and again. "Jake, please call me. You misunderstood. They didn't mean to. We were desperate. You're overreacting. Come home." Not one message said sorry. Not one asked how I was doing. Every word was about them. Their house, their debt, their struggle. That told me everything I needed to know. By the end of the week, I changed my number, blocked them all, and signed a short-term lease 2 towns over. My new apartment wasn't much, small, no dishwasher, paint slightly peeling, but it was quiet. Nobody asked for favors. Nobody looked at my wallet like it was theirs. Most nights, I'd sit by the window, city lights flickering below, and remind myself of one truth. You didn't lose love. You dodged a trap. Emily had once told me she admired how I always stayed calm under pressure. Maybe that's what made it easy for her to push boundaries. She thought I'd always bend. But sometimes, calm doesn't mean passive. It means being patient enough to see through the mask before it's too late. Now, the silence was mine. My savings were safe. My heart, a little bruised, but intact. Looking back, I realized leaving quietly had been my loudest decision. Some people expect you to argue. They feed on your reaction. But when you walk away in peace, you take their control with you. And that's exactly what I did. 2 months slipped by before I heard from her again. Life had settled into something simple. Quiet mornings, long walks, coffee brewed the way I liked it. I wasn't thinking about her much anymore, just moving forward. Then, one evening, a small envelope showed up in my mailbox. My name was written in handwriting I knew too well. No return address. No stamp. She dropped it off herself. I stood there for a moment, holding it, debating whether to open it. Curiosity won. Inside was a handwritten letter. Jake, I never wanted it to end this way. I was only trying to help my family. You know how much they've struggled. You could have trusted me. We were supposed to be a team. I'll always love you. The words were neat, careful, and completely hollow. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of what she'd done, just a quiet attempt to turn guilt into love. A few months earlier, those words might have broken me. Now, they only made me tired. Because love isn't about surrender. It's not about being the family's safety net. Real love builds, it doesn't drain. I folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, and tucked it away in a drawer. Not to reread, just to remind myself later that walking away had been the right choice. So I stayed focused. Work, learning, rebuilding. I opened a new account, started saving again. Every deposit felt like a small act of freedom. I didn't need revenge. I just needed peace. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. 3 months after leaving, I stopped by a small coffee shop downtown. The kind of place where nobody knows your name, just warm light and the sound of the grinder. I ordered a drink and looked around, enjoying the quiet. That's when I saw him, Emily's father, standing in line ahead of me. Same press jacket, same forced confidence, but something had changed. He looked smaller now, eyes darting, shoulders slumped. He didn't notice me. I just watched as he reached the counter. Small coffee, please, he told the barista. Then he fumbled with his wallet, flipping through worn cards, muttering, "Wait, try this one." Declined. Another one. Declined again. He gave a soft sigh and said, "Guess I'll just take water." I stood there, silent, realizing the truth. The show was over. Whatever plan they'd built, it crumbled after I pulled out. Maybe I'd been their last hope. Maybe I'd been the safety net they drained one too many times. He turned to leave, and for a split second, our eyes met. Recognition flashed, then embarrassment. He gave a weak nod, then hurried out the door. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. Seeing him like that told me more than any explanation ever could. Later that week, I got a message request on a new social account, a name I hadn't seen in months. Emily. Jake, I know I have no right, but please can we talk? Things have been hard. My parents lost the house. Tyler dropped out. I made mistakes. I miss you. I stared at it for a long time. My first instinct was to ignore it, delete, block, move on. But something in me wanted closure. Not revenge, not reunion, just understanding. So I replied, "Tomorrow, 2 p.m., the cafe on 5th. If nothing else, I wanted to see her once, not the version I'd built in my head, but the person behind the choices. This time, I'd walk in knowing the truth." The next afternoon, I arrived early. The cafe was quiet, just a few scattered tables and the sound of milk steaming behind the counter. I sat near the window, hands wrapped around a cup that had long gone cold. A few minutes later, she walked in. Emily looked almost the same, but not quite. Her hair was pulled back, and the coat she wore was one I'd bought her last Christmas. She looked tired, not from crying, but from carrying too much for too long. She spotted me, hesitated, then walked over. "Hey," she said softly, sliding into the seat across from me. For a moment, it felt like old times, until she started speaking. "Jake, I just want to talk. We can fix this." I took a breath. "Fix what, Emily? You tried to take everything I had." She looked down, twisting a napkin between her fingers. "It wasn't like that. They needed help." I panicked. I thought if you helped them once, they'd stop. I leaned back, watching her. And did they? Or were they already planning the next favor? Because that's what happens when people see you as a wallet. They don't stop until it's empty. She didn't argue. She just stared at the table, eyes wet, voice quiet. "I never thought you'd actually go." I nodded. "That's the problem, Emily. You thought you could take everything, and I'd stay. You thought love meant you could cross any line, and I'd keep forgiving." Her eyes lifted to meet mine. "We can start over. I'm different now." "No," I said gently. "You're not different. You're just broke. There's a big difference between change and loss. You didn't learn. You just ran out." She flinched slightly, then whispered, "I miss us." I shook my head. "You miss the version of me that didn't question you. You miss access, not affection. What we had, it was real to me. But the moment you tried to drain what I built, you turned it into a transaction." Silence hung between us, the kind that says everything words can't. I set a few dollars on the table for the coffee and stood up. "Take care of yourself, Emily. Truly. But this chapter's over." As I turned to leave, her voice came again, softer now. "Jake, please." I paused at the door and looked back one last time. "You taught me something I'll never forget. In love, trust isn't borrowed. It's earned. And once it's gone, it doesn't come back with apologies." She nodded faintly, eyes fixed on the table. And just like that, I walked out. No anger, just peace. That was the last time I saw her. A year later, A mutual friend mentioned her family had moved out of state. Bankruptcy. Evictions. Tyler is working odd jobs. Emily is staying with relatives. Meanwhile, I bought my first house. Small, quiet, paid in full. No loans, no hidden strings. Sometimes I'd think about her, not with hate, but with a kind of gratitude. Losing her had hurt, sure, but it also saved me from something worse. A lifetime spent carrying people who only saw what I could give, not who I was. They tried to borrow my savings. Instead, they taught me something more valuable, that real wealth isn't in the bank. It's in peace, independence, and the strength to walk away before you lose yourself. And maybe that's the part one hope sticks with anyone reading this. If someone truly loves you, they won't ask you to empty everything you've built just to prove it. I appreciate you watching till the end. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more content.